Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. What's up, Jack?
Well, today I want to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, representative to the House of Representatives from Georgia. And she's been talking a lot about national divorce.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people talking about this right now. And I'm going to say that content that you're consuming is nonsense. I'm just going to say, because I'm going to make like a real quick little argument here, okay?
Okay.
So a national divorce would look like, hey, we're going to drop some lines and we're going to separate and there's going to be peace.
And so everyone just moves states and they go across this line?
It's just whatever you want to do. Do you want to just isolate the cities and say that that's now one country? Do you want to move people around? But that's just a debate going on, right? And what I'm saying is that debate's nonsense. And here's why. You know who else just wanted a peaceful national divorce?
Who?
The Confederates.
Oh.
They said, hey, it's not working out. You're using your political power to bully us, and we just don't want any problems. We're just going to do our own thing down here. And what did the North say? They said, we're going to murder you all. We're going to do Sherman's March to the Sea. We're looking for men, women, children, burn down your houses, everything. Do you think that it would be different this time?
No.
Yeah, it wouldn't. So they say that if California were its own country, it would be the fifth largest economy in the world, right? So imagine California. Just California says, hey, we're doing our own thing. Well, if they're doing their own thing, then the majority of the land of California is not doing their own thing because there's a ton of good people in California. You go to there's tons of farms, and Northern California is great. They're trying to break off and make the state of Jefferson, which at one point they did. I don't know if you know the story, but at one point they went out with guns and blocked the road and said, you just can't come into the state of Jefferson. And then all of a sudden, I believe it was World War II. I think it was Pearl Harbor happened. And they said, oh, okay, we got common cause now again.
Oh, okay.
But do you think that the cities would let all that land go? Because their wealth is in Silicon Valley and other places, but they've got just so much food supply. It's amazing. Do you think they're going to give that up?
Who is they?
California, the cities. It's the cities who would want to leave, but they want to take California.
Right.
But if the cities are leaving, then California, what's left of California is going to become a great place to live.
Right.
Just stay in the cities. Just put a wall around them.
Yep.
But the problem is, do you think that they'll let all of those other citizens, the good people out there in NorCal and just all, or in Eastern California, do you think they'll just let them be?
Well, they don't have a military. I mean,
Well, they do.
California does.
Well, I'm saying if you're talking about just the sheer number of bases just in one city, San Diego.
Oh, and they just keep all the federal
Yeah, you
equipment
got Navy SEALs, you got
okay.
Camp Pendleton, you've got Miramar, you've got the Air Force Base. Like, you got so many resources. And I don't know how the military resources would be split up. In any peaceful divorce, they would be split up. They would have to be.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you just split it down the middle and said, now we're left and right,
Yeah.
or east and west, you would have to split the military somehow.
Okay.
But, and I don't care to argue about how it would be. I'm just saying that the idea that it would be peaceful, the reason why people want to split is so that they can increase their political influence for their specific views.
Okay.
Right? So one side says, hey, we don't want you messing with the woman's right to choose in our own bodies. So a peaceful divorce would intensify that political thing.
Okay.
So if you didn't like that, you would just leave. And then over here, it would be on the other side, it would be abortion would be 100% legal, and they would be like hanging doctors who did it or something like that, imprisoning parents. I don't even know what. Because when the two sides are together, there's pushback, and the pushback stops the views from becoming too extreme on either side.
Yeah.
And on that one argument right there, which I'm not taking a position on, it could become very extreme on both sides.
Totally.
You could have forced eugenics on the one side, and on the other side, you could have parents being imprisoned for, you know what I mean? Like wild stuff. And I'm just saying that there's no such thing as a peaceful divorce. Because the impetus of both sides is to increase their political power. And in doing so, they would end up murdering each other, just as we saw happen with the Confederacy. Because why couldn't they just leave the Confederacy alone? And the answer is because in the system that they had set up, the population was much lower in the South, but the production was very high. And so they had, I mean, the South was supplying cotton to Europe like in a fantastic amount out of the Mississippi, you know, and it was a cash cow. But because they didn't have the high levels of population, the North could politically bully them in the federal system, like in the federal legislature and stuff. And so I'm just saying that this talk about peaceful divorce, it is talk about the mass murder of Americans.
But like, if we go back to the Civil War, the South wants to secede, and what is the North's? You can't leave because we want your cotton, or like, what is the actual?
Yeah, because that represents a loss of wealth, and since they already have the political power,
they don't have to let them leave.
They don't have to let them leave, right? And then they have all the factories in the North, so conceivably they're going to win some type of conflict, unless the South can get some big ally. But basically, the European powers kind of stood back from that whole Civil War thing. And then we see what happens once they won the war, and then they bring in the carpetbaggers, and they have these, basically everybody who had participated or given aid to the Confederates wasn't allowed to hold political office anymore. I believe it was a constitutional amendment. And so they brought in the carpetbaggers, and like in some states they would just put black people who were freed slaves in the legislature, and you would look at, say, 60 people and 45 of them couldn't read. And it was just they were proxies of the North's power even afterwards.
Okay.
And I mean, if you want to go in after that, then the Ku Klux Klan came in, and the Ku Klux Klan was not involved with stuff regarding race. It was a continuation of the Civil War until they captured a federal building and the army had to be sent. And eventually they relented and said, hey, we've got to give back some political power or the conflict will never end.
Okay, so Ku Klux Klan was from the South, and they were doing things to what used to be the North during the war.
In the South, they were fighting for political power. Like the federal building was in the South that they...
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then the army came out and besieged it, and it's like, hey, this is not tenable to move forward. You've got to give back even some semblance of power so you can even trick them into thinking that they have some power.
Right.
But the bullying continued. And this video is not about the Confederacy, really, or the Ku Klux Klan. Who cares? That's past history. But it is about this conversation that people are having. And you might look at this and think, hey, a national divorce would be a good solution. I'd say you're very wrong. I don't know if you're going to be on the side doing all the killing or on the side being killed, but it sounds like a terrible idea.
Because one side is always going to have more power.
One side's going to have more power.
And we don't know what it would be, but
right.
The one side's going to take advantage of the other.
Right. And if it's the cities running through the country, taking resources, and the people in the country guerrilla warfaring, or if it's the people in the country who end up with the military, we'll say, starving out the people in the cities, like it's terrible. It's a terrible idea. There's a lot of ideas, and this one's rotten.
Gotcha.
Another idea would just be vote harder. That would be a rotten idea too.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to debunk ideas that are just complete trash like this. And we're trying to put forward ideas that are good. And I'm also always trying to encourage people to have a revolutionary mindset. You know, say you're like, hey, we could just vote harder. Okay, you're thinking like a reformer. The system's not going to let itself be reformed. The Fed is not going to give up power. They're not going to give up complete control over our economy. Like, why would they?
Well, yeah, they spent 100 years consolidating everything, and the people don't like us anymore. Okay, you guys can have it back. No,
right?
Not how that works.
And we want you to think outside the box in a revolutionary fashion to see what the actual path forward is, and it's not a peaceful divorce.
Right. That isn't the solution.
Right.
So I hope you enjoyed this look at just a little, some buzzwords that have been going around. We want you to start learning how to think about these things and learn to roll your eyes when you hear certain things. And if you think we're totally wrong, please let us know. We love reading your comments. We'll see you next time.